Hi YouTube, Suki here today for some more Warforged content. Today we're gonna be doing something different. We're going to be doing a tier list for our Warcasters in draft. Now, one of my missions when I first started this channel is to help new players with the game, whether that's making decks or more importantly acquiring more cards. And draft is the fastest and most efficient way for you to get more cards. Now, I tried doing this video in just one take with all the factions. However, Tier List Maker gave up on me halfway. I was at around Sisters, I think, when the table just crashed. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna be dividing this into two. For this video, we're gonna be covering the Ultramarines, the Orcs, Eldar, the Necrons, or Chaos, and the Tyranids. So our tiers are guaranteed 12. So whenever you guys see this caster, you should always pick it. Easy mode. This means that you'll have a considerably easier time, but you still have to work to get to 12. Better choice than average. Average, challenging, and our trash tier. Now, how do I rate warlords? So first, I have to rate the warlord based on their faction. Like, does the faction have an easy try in drafting? Is the faction good right now? Is the faction suited for skirmish? Of course, we have to talk about this in skirmish, not in classic, because the matches are in skirmish mode. Next, we have to talk about the warlord himself, and most importantly, the talent and skills. Like, is he telling you to draft a specific way? Does he give a bonus by himself? Does his skill particularly suck? Is he helpful for you or does he hurt you? You know, something like that. So we're gonna begin with our Ultramarines. We'll be switching between the screen and the tier list, because I found that the tier list warlords are a bit too small. That's why we're gonna be looking at them in the game screen. So first off, we'll go with Calgar. Ability is draw card, gain 1 armor if you get Codex. Now let's talk about Ultramarines first. As a faction, Ultramarines does not like skirmish. Now, one of the core concepts of skirmish is that you get to save one extra energy and carry it over next turn when you think you need it. So you can plan for extra big turns if you think you need the extra energy. Space Marines can't do that because one of their abilities is Codex, or their core ability rather, is Codex, which means that you have to spend all of your energy every turn. So this means that as a whole, Space Marines is not that great in skirmish. And in fact, when you look at the ladder, the only real deck for Space Marines you see is Varo Tigerius and his infinite combo with the lieutenant, and that really just runs on triggering codex over and over again. So Calgar, draw a card, gain 1 armor. Now in classic, this is guaranteed gain 1 armor to start. You don't even have this in skirmish because you start off with three energy, so you're not gonna be gaining an armor. You're just gonna draw a card. Uh, I particularly don't value drawing a card that much in skirmish, particularly because around turn 5 or 6, your deck will start actively trying to kill you already. So if you draw cards before that point, then you're already you're setting yourself up for a loss in the fatigue portion of the match. And aside from that, you actually have all the resources you need already in skirmish. You don't need to draw that many cards. Or actually, I most of my decks don't even have any card draw associated with them. So we have a caster who's at least 30 health, so at least he has something going for him. But he has ability that's not that useful in a challenging faction, so he goes into the challenging tier. Next we have Titus. Now Titus, while in a challenging faction, he still has a wide range of abilities for you to pick from. So he's still gonna find a use for. You're still gonna find a use for him no matter what. Um, with regards to the faction, you just have to accept that you're probably not gonna be able to trigger your your codexes. So you have to stay away from codexes. But aside from that, Tigers or Titus should do well. If you go wide, you still have the +1 to the whole army. If you're not going wide and the opponent is, you should have the blast too. So you have all the tools you need. So I would actually rate Titus as average. He's brought down by being a space marine as a whole, but aside from that, he's okay. Next we have Letharius. Strike heal 1 to adjacent units, give 1 to your troops, or draw a card. And the 1 is permanent. So the problem with Letharius is here we go again with the draw card, which you don't want to do. However, he does have some other things going for him. He can heal 1, and he can give +1 range to all of your units. However, a board-wide +1 range actually pales in comparison to what other people do. Like for example, Azrael does +1/+1 to his entire board. Leontus does +1/+1. Uh, Morven Vale can do +2/+2 or +1/+1 minimum. So just a base +1 is actually below average, which means he joins our Great Warlord in the below average pile. Um, Next we have Ventress. Now there is value in being able to put 1 damage anywhere on the board. That means that you don't have to ping off 1 health units anymore, and you can do this whether something's hidden behind the vanguard or anywhere there on the board. There's no hiding from it. Even if somebody's in camouflage or stealth, you just have to target the thing next to them. And you know, of course, you can always just target the warlord, so there's really no hiding from it. So it's a flexible ability. You have to accept that you're probably never going to be able to trigger codex, or at least not when you want to. Which means he's okay. So average. Lastly, we have Tigerius. So Tigerius is actually very flexible and good in this format because his cost is variable. He either costs 1, 3, 2, or 2. So no matter what, you can actually consistently trigger your codexes with him because he makes himself fit to whatever energy you have left. Most importantly with him, he's very versatile. I mentioned the importance of being able to deal 1 damage anywhere, and he can do that with the 2 energy. And in addition to that, for 3 energy, he can have a shield anywhere he wants. And he can do this every turn, consistently, as long as you have room in your hand for your talent. This means that you can preserve 1 of your troops and kill 1 of your opponent's troops and preserve your board. So shields are very important, especially if you can generate them out of nowhere. And as a whole, Space Marine doesn't really do shields by themselves too. So, given that, I would actually say Varro is a better choice than others. If you're picking Space Marines, he's the one you should pick. Uh, Although he's still not gonna get into the top tiers. Next, we have our orcs. Beast Boss Mogrim. When you deploy a beast, give +1 to your warlord. Talent. Your warlord gains +1 draw beast. So you don't actually want to draw, but you do want to gain your +1 attack. Now, the thing about Morgrim is that he helps you draft. He's telling you, I want you to draft me beasts, which is very useful for you because you don't need to think too much anymore when you're drafting with Morgrim. Of course, sometimes you have to determine whether you're not getting quality beasts and you're getting offered some very good mechs, for example, or some very good tide troops. So you might have to go against his wishes, but generally speaking, if you go in the direction that Morgrim wants you to go, you'll have an easier time. So he's in a faction. As orcs as a whole are very good in drafting. They have particularly hardy troops. They have some good stratagems. However, the problem with orcs is that their packs or their boxes, the boxes that you pick, usually come with a weird spell or weird stratagem that doesn't see very much use, like camouflage for everyone, or deal one damage to for everyone, or something like that. So as long as you can make good use of those extra spells, you could orcs will probably go very far, because they have solid troops, and they don't have any mechanics that work against skirmish. So Beast Boss Morgrim gives you help in drafting, gets free bonuses when you bring out beasts. Means that he's actually particularly good in drafting. So I would put him at better choice than others. Next you have Boss Zagstruck. So he gets +1 attack, armor 1, and only for 1 energy, and that's pretty much it. So he's just an average warlord in a faction that has pretty good drafting. So um, there's not really much to speak about in his ability, and he's not restricted in. He's not he's not being guided to draft anywhere, so you have the freedom to pick the boxes you want, uh, which means that he is actually a bit better than others, because there's no obvious downsides to him. Next we have Grok Face Ripa. Your troops with Tide have +1. That's a that's a board wide bonus. And ephemeral, draw troop and give it +1. So we don't want to draw troop. Now it may sound like I'm against drawing cards in general. If you can draw cards for free, why not? But in this case, you're paying 2 energy to draw a card, so you're giving up something to draw a card. So it's not worth it to hurt yourself in the future. However, Grok does have a very strong ability that tells you how to draft. As long as you give him tide troops, he gives everyone +1, and tide troops usually flood the board, so he'll give +1 to a lot of different targets. And he's in a faction that's good in drafting, so because of that, he's actually in the above average tier. Next we have Grazul. So Gazgul, he's a 30 health guy. Deploy a grot, give +1 to your troops, and that's for everyone. Um, and that's permanent. Gazgul functions a lot like Grok, in that he gives +1 to everyone. The difference with them is that Grok only gives it to tide troops, while Gazgul gives it to everybody. The thing is, you're gonna be wanting to play tide troops anyway with Gazgul or things that go wide, because that's the way you can maximize the benefits of your ability. However, since he plays a lot like Grok, we put him in the same tier. Next we have Godrung. Godrung +2 attacks and heal 3 whenever he slays. So he's telling you that he wants to do all the work himself, and then you would draft things that either kill opposing troops, like no mucking about, or do things like squash assault or things like that. The thing with this is that you're not really offered a lot of those things, so it can be hard to get a build for Godrang that works. There are things like proper killy or that I may be forgetting the name of the spell, but it gives bloodthirsty or warlord. Um, there are things that work with Godring, and there's also the grot that gives him +1. So with the bloodthirst, you can get up to 10 attack in one turn. Um, but it's sometimes hard to find them in the packages, which is why I have to just put him in the average tier. Next, we have the last one, which is I don't have it. Okay, which is Mozrog. So deal 1 damage to an enemy. If it survives, gives us 1 to your attack. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, especially when you throw Stomp in there, it's +1 +2 attack. You just get to divide it in certain ways. So he's actually a lot like Godrung, but he doesn't heal 3. But he's still going in the same direction as Godrung, where he kind of wants to do things himself, and he wants to. There's a ability where if your unit has Stomp, which he can get from this, he can get +2 attack extra. So you can combine that with the Bloodthirst, with the Goblin, to actually do a lot of damage to the opposing Warlord. But you don't actually get those a lot. So he suffers from the same problem as Godrung. Which is why we put him in the average tier. Next, Eldar. So, Eldar is... I have to say Eldar is hit or miss. It's actually very hard to draft an Eldar deck because they're split into two divisions, let's say. If you get boxes with all stealth troops, you can actually have a pretty good draft deck. If you get boxes with all vehicles, you're gonna be struggling in draft. So that being the case, since they're not consistent, and if you're drafting, you want consistency. Where I have to, I'm not really valuing them all that highly. Um, let's start with Dread, one of my favorite warlords. When an enemy receives stun, deal 1 damage to it, and your warlord gains +2 and can stun a troop. So you have a lot of flexibility with this warlord, and you have a control element where you can ignore big units just by stunning them. She's still limited by the fact that Eldar is not that good at drafting, but she's giving you a direction where she wants to go aggressive, and she wants you to build a deck around that. So, due to that, I will be giving her a better choice than others. Next, we have Lycus. Lycus is similar to Jane. She just doesn't have the stunning ability. The only difference is that she can deal her 2 damage or 4 damage, if you will, to 2 different targets. Whether one is to a troop, one is to, or both are to the warlord. That's fine. You have the flexibility of being able to do that. And like I said, there is value in being able to put direct damage somewhere, because that means that you don't have to deal with 1 HP troops or things like that anymore. And as a bonus, she can re-stealth her units, so you might have a second attack with one of your stealth guys. So, I am putting her in the same tier uh, as Jane. Next, we have Eliak. Ephemeral, give Shuriken 1 to your units this turn. Okay. A lot of people say that this is one of the worst warlords out there. If you think about it, not really. What is Shuriken 1? Shuriken 1 is essentially 1 damage. But it's structured in such a way that it's a separate damage. So, if you have Shuriken, you can ping off shields and then do your real damage. Or you can do damage to armor twice. one for the shuriken, and one for your normal attack. So it just structured in a special way. But for all intents and purposes, it gives you +1 range and +1 melee. And that's pretty much what Leontos does. That's what Azrael does. The problem with him is that it's not permanent. It's just for this one round. And he's in a faction that's not particularly good in drafting, and that's all he does. So because of that, he's not that great. So I would put him uh, in the challenging tier. Next we have Keltok. Choose a card in your hand, return it to your deck, draw a card, gain one. So for all intents and purposes, he generates his own soul stones, which is good because you're able to draft things that cost a lot of soul stones, and you have the um, certainty that you'll be able to use them. Now here's the problem. During when you were playing with Keltok in Classic, you were able to use this ability for maybe 4 or 5 turns before you get to your payoff card. You don't have that time in skirmish. At most, you'll be able to get to use this ability once or twice, or maybe thrice, and that's not enough to really fuel the spirits of the dead, or that card that lets you draw 5 and reduce their cost by 5. Because you'll have enough energy for them by the third turn, and you won't have enough soul stones yet, because you didn't have enough time to use your ability. So, sadly, even though he was one of my main warlords before, we have to rate him at challenging. Next, Medriel. Deploy Storm Guardian. 2/1/2. Shuriken 1. So, what does this remind you of? 1 cost 2/1/2. And Shuriken 1. However, Shuriken 1 is only used on the attack. This doesn't have flank or anything like that, so it's gonna be attacked. So for all intents and purposes, this is a grot. See? 2/1/2. 1/1/2. So it's the same thing because the enemy is gonna shoot you instead of attacking your melee. Alright, so her ability gives you a grot. It's gonna die in your opponent's turn. They will just attack it. He will do 1 damage to your opponent, and that's it. Generously, you can say she generates her own soul stones because when it gets killed, your opponent probably won't waste another action killing the soul stone with it. But Keltok generates his own soul stone for 1. She has to go the hard way and bring out a troop and get it killed. And there's really nothing going for her. So she's at the very bottom of our tier list. Next we have Necrons. Imhotep the Stormlord. Deal 1 damage to an enemy and heal 1 to your Warlord. The thing with Imhotep is that his ability, deal 1 and heal 1, is just average. It doesn't like spread like Uriel's, or it doesn't have any special effects. Just heal 1. It only really shines when you get Immortal Pride. When you get Immortal Pride, he's very good, and he can probably win the game for you. But the problem is, you only get 4 shots at Immortal Pride, and well, 5 with reroll, but you're not guaranteed you're gonna get it. So he's not that consistent. So, but as a whole, Necron is good at drafting. It's just a bit difficult with him because you have to get the proper mix of things to be reincarnated and things that can reincarnate. And Imhotep doesn't help you in that department at all. He's just telling you to get Immortal Pride for him. So because of that, I actually rate Imhotep as challenging. It's hard to get very deep with him in draft. Next, you have Orkan. Choose a card from your deck and put it at the top. So Orkin is actually very similar to Keltok in that you get to fix your deck for all intents and purposes. Because Keltok lets you like put back a card and draw one. He lets you choose one. So it's kind of similar. The problem is, and actually he does nothing else. So you would think, oh, this is better than Keltok, because I mean, Keltok's better than him because Keltok gives one Spirit Stone. The thing is, Orkan is in a faction with a lot of artifice, which means just having a one-cost spell is already a big ability because it lets you trigger artifice easily. And our Orkan actually gives you like a direction to go in because of his one cost spell. He actually wants you to draft a lot of artificers for him, which means that I'm actually very bullish on Orkan, so I put him at better choice than others. Ramatek, uh, your other destroyers have +1, +1/+1 to a friendly unit and armor 1, so allows you to generate favorable trades. Um, in draft, Ramatek is actually pretty good. You have a board-wide buff. Now, destroyer is a weakness, but you can build around that with proper activations, and you can give armor 1 to any unit you want. So just like being able to place shield on command, being able to give armor on command can save units and give you favorable trades. Now, there's really nothing else to say about him, and actually, I place him at better choice than others. Lastly, we have Nemesis Zandrak. Uh, Deploy a Necron Warrior, which is a 2/2 Vanguard. Now, earlier on, I was pretty down with with Medriel because all she does is deploy a troop that will do 1 damage to your opponent. If we're being honest, all this will do is deal 2 damage to your opponent because they'll just attack this the moment it comes into play. However, this leaves a remnant. They either have to get rid of that remnant or it never goes away. Now, of course, they'll probably get rid of your other more valuable remnants. However, that means that no matter what, if they're not spending an action on this, which they probably won't, you will be able to resurrect something. So your resurrection abilities will never go to waste. So as long as this keeps getting resurrected, it's an action that's not going to your other units. In this case, I think he's okay in draft, not the greatest, but okay. So we go with our Chaos boys. Chaos is actually quite easy to draft for in draft. Because they have a lot of big units, so you have a lot of choices there. They have some low cost buffs, so with Abaddon's blessings. And there's just a few cards you want to avoid, like cards that let you draw fate, draw cards for every blessing on a unit because you'll kill yourself that way. Um, and they have like venom crawlers and brutes and other stuff like that that just kind of win the game all by themselves. So on the Chaos Warlords here, we have Harkin. The problem with Harkin here is that while his ability is very flexible with last two, you're not actually sure you're going to be able to abuse this because you're not sure you're gonna be able to get cards that can assist you in killing troops. And by itself, Harkin doesn't actually do anything because he doesn't actually increase his own attack. So if your opponent doesn't have any troops or is playing one of those type of decks where they're just trying to duel you down, then Harkin's gonna have a very hard time. Due to that, I actually rate him as challenging. Next, we have Sylar. Sylar has Diabolic Strength, Infernal Gaze, or Dark Pact. More importantly, At the start of the game, you get an Abaddon's Chosen in hand. So, you get a buff in hand already that can buff your HP, or if you're desperate, it can buff your damage. Now, and that's free. You get that every game. Now, aside from that, he gets three very good abilities, and one that can even heal his entire board, which is very few and far between. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that you get the one you want every turn, but they're all generally useful in some way. And he's in the faction with Venom Crawler, so he can even reduce this. Due to that, I actually rate him as one of the easier casters to work with. So I'm putting him all the way at the top in easy mode. Next we have Galaron. Give vulnerable 2 to an enemy troop and backlash, give a dark pack to a random enemy troop. In Classic, I think Galaron's pretty good. Because there's a point in early game, maybe turn 2, 3, 4, where your opponent's HP or your opponent's troop's HP doesn't get past 4. So Galaron himself can pretty much just control the board and kill anything your opponent comes out with. And more importantly, if you have a small troop, he can actually give the bonus to that troop. So it was a bit hard to play against him. However, in skirmish, you see a small troop in turn 1, maybe, if they don't save their energy for next turn, and then that's it. Starting from like turn 2, you get the midweights, and then turn 3, you get the heavyweights already. So there's really not a lot of room for him to work there. But it's still a good ability. It's still vulnerable too, and it still gives you a mark, but it's not that consistent anymore. That said, he does do something, so it's better than Harken. So I would rate him at average. Next, we have Abaddon. Dark Pack, random, or +2 healthier Warlord. So he's actually similar to Hexicorn, except that instead of always getting a Dark Pack, he's not variable. But he does have extra health. However, Hexcorn does carry his own Abaddon's chosen for a single use, and Abaddon's ability is random, so Hexcorn's still better. But that being said, he's going in that direction, so you draft the same units that you would with Hexcorn, and you're still gonna perform well. So I would rate him at better choice than others. Next, we have our Tyranids. Alright, so we have Turbigon. Your opponent kinda knows that when a Termagant comes out in a Turbigon deck, you have to kill it. Otherwise, you can buff it to unimaginable sizes and kill the opposing Warlord. The problem with like Turbigon is that's really all he does. Now, there are Turbigon combo decks out there that can machine gun you to death, but you're not gonna get all those cards in draft. That means, and Tyranids as a whole is actually a bit hard to draft for because you have to get the right mix between troops, synapse, and things that buff. So it's a challenge to do it in like regular deck building, much more in draft. So that being said, Turbigon is in our very bottom tier as well. Next we have Neuranthrope. 1 cost, deal 1 damage to an enemy or give 1 health to a friendly unit. And he synapse himself. So this is actually never just +1 health. If you have more units on the table, it's like Anva where he can spread it to those around him. So it's normally +3 health. He's a pretty good unit. He has a synapse by himself, so that allows you to target him for buffs for the other units. The problem is that's all he does, so it's kind of low impact. It's just +1 health and 1 damage anywhere. But then if you do that, you're not getting their +1 health boost. And Tyranids is kind of hard to draft with, so I would rate him as average. Next we have Swarmlord. Swarmy, give +2/+2 and +1 health to a friendly troop. The best thing about Swarmy is that he has one of the more powerful abilities in the game. +2/+2 with a troop. In a faction with Synapse, which means you can hit up to 3 targets with this at once. However, he's also he's also a warlord with one of the most restrictive talents because you need a troop that can receive that buff um, before it can use it, which means that your board is probably gonna get cleared every turn. If you can make something stick, that's great, but that's not always a guarantee, and it's quite hard. But the thing with Swarmlord is that he makes drafting a bit easier for you because you don't actually have to draw. You don't actually have to draft for the buffs anymore, because he provides that for you. That being said, he's still at average. Lastly, we have Terror. Flying, your water gains flying and +2 this turn, so that's 4, plus an additional 1 for each friendly troop. The maximum size of your board is 8, which means the Terror can get up to 12. 4 plus 8. And he heals 1 too. So, he's telling you what he wants to do. He doesn't want you to buff his troops. He doesn't want anything like that. He just wants a lot of them. And then you're in a faction that can cast Bloodthirst, and he can kill the opposing warlord by himself. So you have a game plan for him. You know what you want to draft, which means that he's somebody that can consistently perform in drafts. So I actually rate him at a better choice than others. If you notice, I don't have any of the guaranteed 12 yet because we haven't discussed Sisters and Space Wolves yet. But for now, this is our tier list. In another video, we'll be discussing Tau, Sisters, Dream Stealers, uh, Imperial Guard, Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, and Space Wolves. All right, I hope this helps you when you draft. Again, use your free draft every day. If you like more content like this, like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Have a great day.